into the lobby right now, so we should be getting into the draft very soon.
Lobby's forming. Phoenix, what are you predicting in terms of bans for Dragonshire? I know we've seen a fair bit of Blaze and Genji banned out. Do you think we're going to see a recurring theme here? Are we going to see some kind of solo lane specialist?
Oh, I'm not too sure about that one, but I do think you were on the right track with the things like the Blaze and the Genji. They've been very strong. It was interesting that was kind of passed up in the previous game. Just didn't get picked or banned throughout, so it was very interesting to see that one. But yeah, he is a very strong hero. Wouldn't be surprised to see him picked up by either team for this next draft. But things like the Genji we saw in the previous match, it was the Genji and the Maya taken away right off the bat. Just these hypermobility and a lot of assassination potential. Just not wanting to let your opponents just dictate the pace of the game with some of those heroes. And yeah, we'll probably more likely see those similar bans coming in this game.
I think double Shimada ban is definitely on the cards if either team know how to play those cards correctly. Judging by the experience that we'll see, we will no doubt see those guys banned out. And if they're not, they will be swiftly picked up, I'm assuming, early on in the draft, Phoenix. Potentially thinking we may see that Malfurion. We've seen how devastating it can be and how underwhelming it can be when challenged in the face of some serious adversity by the plebs to pros. So I'm looking forward to this draft in a big way.
Yeah, and the thing with the Malfurion is that you can pretty much first pick it. It's not just, hey, we have this Malfurion, we can take it with a Tracer, and all of a sudden we have this strong combo. The Malfurion just works into so many things. Yes, it does allow these very dive-heavy compositions to just have all this healing at their disposal without putting the healer at all that much risk. But
the range
also
that Malfurion
everything else that he has such a solid kit that he can bring so much to a team outside of just the healing.
Absolutely. The Twilight Dream. Every time we see people dive in on him, poof, Twilight Dream, silenced, and they get burnt down most times. And with that, Phoenix, let's get our draft underway as we kick into the final game for the night in the ANZ Open Division with Ripple Esports versus Capital.
Dragonshire.
Alrighty, so it is Dragonshire. First bans. We're probably going to be seeing some very familiar faces in those bans. And just waiting to see who actually gets the first one. It's going to be the side of Ripple having the first ban. So, this is where we start to see, are they as well rehearsed on some of those newer heroes? Sure, Maya has been out for a while, but sometimes when it comes to these new heroes, does the team have the play with that specific hero? Because it's not just about, can that person play the hero? Let's pick it. The team needs to know how to play with it. And it looks like Ripple, they're just not wanting to even chance that hero going through.
It's all about the team synergy, especially with an OP hero. Like, far too easy for 5 people to come against them, cure that kill. And then the team's at a loss as to what to do because they don't have that, mispositioning, and they were playing around that key player. So, smart ban, Ripple, just don't want to even risk it.
Yeah, if you're not all that comfortable playing it, just ban it away if you feel as though it's going to be too much of an issue to deal with. Now we have to see where Capital go with. Do they go with something like the Genji now that he's been almost just unlocked with the Maya ban, just giving it much more freedom to move around in these fights? So that could be the first ban, or there's things like we do see the Hanzo. So the other brother is going to be the one taken away. Still a very strong hero. We've seen it throughout the course of the night. He can bring an incredible amount of damage, and it's just so annoying to deal with. Just wanting to get that right off the bat. And again, it's going to be the Dahaka for the first pick.
That was an insta-lock Dahaka too.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I'm feeling some confidence on the side of Ripple here. They want to have that pressure, and we see the answer in the form of a Sonya Phoenix.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. We are on the live patch, so it is the Sonya with those few nerfs that should have gone through a little bit earlier, but she didn't want those nerfs and just decided to ignore them. But she does have those nerfs now, but she's still quite powerful in those soul lanes, can bully around that Dahaka, and will more than likely have a lot of control over that top side of the map. The Dahaka is essentially just going to be trying to at least equalize the lane, just get that experience and try and affect the rest of the map. But interestingly interestingly enough, it's not going to be the Malfurion that is going to be prioritized when it comes to the support. It's going to be the Alexstrasza, which is a bit of an interesting one.
High heals against high HP allies there, Phoenix.
Yeah.
We'll see the Garrosh picked up and the Malfurion. So I'm sensing a bit of Ripple, some Groundbreaker into some roots, into a tongue, into some towers, and into their coffin.
Yeah, they've got a lot of crowd control at their back. There's a lot there that they can work with. As you mentioned, the Groundbreaker, the flips, the roots, the tongues, the drags, potentially in isolation. There's so much control that this lineup already has, and they haven't really even locked in their damage. So they're very flexible in where they can go with this draft, and it's a brilliant start to it, really, for Ripple.
And so what do you think we're going to see in terms of damage from them in this one, Phoenix? I mean, there's the opportunity to have a melee followed up with some range damage, whether that's auto attack damage or magic damage. So I'm calling a potential Li Ming or Jaina.
Those are potentials, yeah. Well, the good thing about the way that they've orchestrated this draft is that they can wait and see what is picked up on the other side, and they're going to be able to see 4 picks before they even start to think about what kind of DPS they want to go for, and they can adjust accordingly. So very nicely done. They could go for things like the mages, the Li Ming, the Jaina, even the Gul'dan, who does very well at punishing teams that try and stack up in certain areas. If that Sonya's trying to go in and be a big threat, horrify and make and isolate her, and they can take care of her. If the Alexstrasza is starting putting down a lot of those healing circles, it's just pretty much a giant bullseye that allows all of that focused damage to go in on it. So mages can deal with that quite well. And they have a lot of flexibility, and we just have to wait and see what Capital is going to go with first.
Well, Phoenix, some very interesting points raised, and I'll round back to one of those in just a moment after we look at the Malthael ban from Capital. Obviously fearing, and going into the Alexstrasza, I feel they're going to go for some more high HP targets, so some more frontline. With Tyrael being banned by Ripple, so they definitely don't want to be dealing with a Sanctification. What I'm feeling from Ripple is that we're going to see some high burst damage targets, picks coming up, because they want to be able to utilize all of that CC that they've locked in already. So what Alexstrasza is going to have to need to do is mitigate that damage, get her allies out of there, Dragon Queen into it, and keep them alive.
Yeah, it's going to be very hard to try and deal with a lot of that crowd control, as you mentioned. There's a lot to deal with, and there's only so much healing that the Alexstrasza can pump out at a time, especially prior 10. Sure, you have the Dragon Queen, but again, you only have a finite amount of healing that you can pump out, and depending on how actually, we do actually have a triple warrior composition coming out.
There we go.
And you're mentioning some high HP heroes on that side. You got 3 warriors, and they are going to be an incredibly beefy front line, and that's going to be a lot of HP to push through.
That absolutely is. So, a pretty spot on prediction there. If we do go into a melee, a couple of heroes here for Ripple, they're going to run into a bit of trouble with that Arthas. My only concern at the moment is the damage for Capital. Are they going to be able to utilize the lockdown that ETC and Sonya can present with that Ancient Spear and his Power Slide? What are they going to use to kill it?
That is going to be the big question, and they're going to have to really rectify that with their last pick. And I feel as though they've done this quite well. I mean, sure, these triple warrior compositions, they're very hit and miss because, as you said, they are very much lacking damage. And as you were saying, Li Ming is going to come in, and so it's going to be the Tychus. There was going to be another option into those high HP targets with that minigun, can shred them down. And also, the Tychus does do rather well into the ETC. If he's going to try and set up for a mosh pit, grenade right on his face, and he's just going to have none of that. So they have a lot of options to interrupt any potential mosh pits. So we
the wave of force, yep.
Exactly, wave of force, all of Garrosh with the Groundbreaker, tongue drag, silencers. There's so many tools on the side of Ripple that they can deal with that mosh pit, but then again, you could still just go with the mosh pit, force them to have those options on hand.
Well, we may even see that stage dive coming out from the ETC to be able to keep up pressure from the Dahaka. So,
Mhm.
you know, that would probably be a wise choice from Capital to move into that stage dive just to mitigate all of those, you know, wait for the 10s to be locked in, of course, and then try and bait them into some of those disruption 10s, like the Wave of Forceful Aiming, for example.
Huh.
Yeah, just to try and play a little bit of a mental game.
Hmm.
So we see
The
the
last, yeah, the
Chromie.
last bit Chromie. To be honest, I wasn't expecting that because, as we are mentioning, we kind of need a high damage or a high consistent damage to really make the most of this triple warrior lineup. I mean, yeah, they do have some a decent amount of crowd control, and the Chromie could follow up on that. But if these fights go for too long, it's going to be very hard to see where a lot of their consistent DPS comes from. It's going to more than likely be with the Sonya with a Wrath of Berserker trying to just pump out as much damage as she can, but I'm a little bit worried for this composition on the side of Capital. I feel as though Ripple have a much more well-rounded composition, but we'll just have to wait and see how it plays out.
Couldn't agree with you more, Phoenix. As we get into the final game of the night,
For combat.
fighting out of the blue corner, we do have Ripple Esports with Burnsy on our Dahaka, Loke on the Garrosh, Mav repping the Li Ming, Venom on Malfurion, and Lapra on the Armor Shredding Tychus.
And on the red side, we have Capital. We have Slick Slot on the ETC, Ultimo on Alexstrasza, Aureus on Sonya, Tyron on the Arthas, and Beefy is on the Chromie.
We'll go with Beefy.
Beefy is on the Chromie. There's always some weird names. I'm always going to get mixed up by some of them.
Oh, see a little bit of an interesting strat coming out from the Ripple team. Are they tower or just flank into that pyramid bush in the middle?
Yeah, they do have knowledge that the ETC has gone or has made some movements, but they're playing this very cautiously, not wanting to give anything away just yet. And the Chromie is actually going to step forward and almost gets caught out, but they are going to be able to get out of that just in time.
Very, very close there for the Chromie. Although there is still lots of peel on the side of Capital there, so I feel Chromie was alright. Chromie's just going to stack up on those Qs and wave clear a little bit. I feel like Ripple put themselves at a little bit of a disadvantage there with that maneuver, allowing that wave clear in mid to happen a lot quicker for Capital, Phoenix.
Yeah, and on the top side, they do have Loke on the Garage coming up to try and help out with that solo lane, because already we see Burnsy having to use the well tap, just getting pushed around by the Sonyas. It's so hard to deal with as that Dahaka. Yeah, you have some sustain. Yeah, you're going to be able to wave clear safely under your towers, but you are going to be playing on the back foot the entire time.
Phoenix, that's going to be the name of this game, I think, buddy. We're going to need to see some sharp, snappy rotations and some picks occurring. So sending the Garrosh top, great idea. You need to wait till that Sonya's out of a little bit more position first. We've got some heavy damage coming from the Li Ming into that Chromie, eating the entire Arcane Orb.
Dragon's power is yours.
Yeah, and we're starting to see some of the damage come out, and sure, there is a decent amount of burst coming out from that Chromie, but if they're not able to really finalize those kills, it's gonna be a little bit for naught. But we do have the altars being activated. Burnsy does get help from the Tychus on that top side, so he will be able to maintain control of that for just a little bit. But on the bottom side, it is going to be Capital with the man advantage, going to be maintaining control of the bottom side.
So the three-man split bot for Capital is definitely keeping the Malfurion and Li Ming at bay, although Malfurion, with his Innovate and his Rejuve, can keep that Li Ming up for days. We see Capital transitioning over to take their siege camp to try and alleviate some pressure, or to assist with that pressure, I should say. And Aureus almost going down in that top lane, Phoenix, to the Tychus, the Haka. So, tight game so far. XP is matched.
Yeah, not too much given up on either side just yet, and as I was saying earlier, the 1v1 matchup between the Dahaka and the Sonya is a little bit rough for the Dahaka, so does get that help and helps out in that matchup, and they're going to try and get as much advantage out of that as possible. But meanwhile, on the bottom side, Capital realizing that they do have the man advantage on this side of the map, they are going to be invading, but it's probably going to be a little bit too far, as actually the Garrosh is going to be taking a decent amount of damage and is forced away. So a nice invade coming out for Capital, and they're going to have to really make the most of that they can on this bottom side of the map.
So they've got a big strong push down the bottom there. Phoenix, Aureus on the top lane, getting away with a sliver of health from the Dahaka and Tychus. 100 HP left on that Sonya as Aureus returns to base.
Yeah, real close there. If they would manage to get that kill, it would have been so much pressure being pushed on that top side of the map, but as they weren't able to, it's just going to allow the Sonya to come back in a reasonable amount of time, not really lose too much on that top side. Sure, it's going to lose up a lot of pressure on those towers. They'll probably go down and give up that free experience, but they are getting way much more done on the bottom side of the map. Those siege camps that they invaded to get are doing so much work. They just were not taking so long and did so much damage to that fort on the bottom side. It was allowing them to get so much pressure on this bottom side of the map, and a lot of it was pretty much for free.
Well, Phoenix, the bot lane is go-to lane. Finish early on Dragonshire, and Capital are setting themselves up for success with that. Having those two bruiser camps the siege camps dominating that bottom fort with, again, a sliver of HP remaining. We see a rotation from Slick Sloth on the ETC up to try and catch that Dahaka out to alleviate a little bit of pressure for Sonya as she takes that top shrine back. No
Actually,
Dragon Knight summoned yet, Phoenix.
Yeah, the Dahaka is actually in the middle lane because they realized that the Tychus was going to have a much better time against that Sonya, just being able to shred through her with that percentage-based damage, but we do actually have an engagement on the top side. They're just going to be dueling 1v1.
You're right. Sorry, I called the Dahaka the Tychus.
All good, all good. It's a little bit easy to just lose track of that because more often than not, you will have that Dahaka in that solo lane on the top side because he's fine on an island. He can self-sustain. He's usually fine, but he does get punished a fair bit by that Sonya. And even this Tychus stepping a little bit too far forward is going to get punished a fair bit as well. But now Burnsy is up here to help out.
We've got the 4-man still down in the bot lane as one of them peels away. We get Arthas heading to... We've got a bit of a fight there on Ultimo. Gets caught in the root. Ultimo falls. Alexstrasza dead.
And meanwhile, on the top side, the Sonya did get taken down, so a kill on the top and the bottom for the side of Ripple Esports, and this has given them the chance to control both of the altars, potentially make a play towards a Dragon Knight. But with this Arthas in the mid lane, it's going to be a little bit more difficult than just walking in there and just grabbing it.
Well, Phoenix, it's very easily displayed at the moment that there's some dominance occurring in the solo lanes. We see Dahaka being supported by his team with the rotations from the Tychus. And for them to get that kill onto the Alexstrasza down at bot lane, we saw the impacts that walking away as an Arthas could have. As Ripple pick up the Dragon Knight for the first DK of the game.
Yeah, it's 6 minutes in, so not the earliest, but not necessarily the latest of Dragon Knights that we usually see. But this is going to allow Ripple to just punch down a whole bunch of these outer towers, get that experience, and give themselves level 10, which they do have right now, and potentially give them a little bit of an opportunity to just keep on applying pressure. But it's going to be very quickly that Capital is going to be able to get 10 for themselves and mitigate any potential disadvantage when it comes to heroics.
Phoenix, we've got 10 coming online for both teams, and I'm not seeing any surprises when it comes to heroic choices.
Yeah, a lot of the usuals. The only thing that you could really look towards is the temporal loop being picked up by like Hiromi, not going for the slowing sands, realizing that they want to be going for those pickoffs, wanting to really make the most of that crowd control and just having to get all of what damage they have onto the single target. It's actually going to be the leap coming out from the Sonya, so they're not really worrying about those extended fights. They realize if those fights go for anything longer than say 5 seconds, then their composition is not in the position to be fighting. So just wanting to pretty much do a one and done kind of fight, just blast them down with all their control, all the damage that they have, and make sure that's how it ends.
Well, we're going to see a little bit of an invade on this seat. Deep on the Arthas, and he gets burnt before he has an opportunity to use his minions to heal himself back up. As Ultimo moves in with Dragon Queen, Silence comes out, ETC takes that siege camp, Lapra copying some damage. Here comes the temporal loop into the mosh pit. Good night, Li Ming. Exploded. So there's a potential of what we can see for the rest of the game, Phoenix.
That was an interesting way to use those heroics. The Li Ming wasn't in the mosh pit, but as soon as she walked out of it, the temporal loop was just going to bring her right back into it. So they were able to secure that kill. Sure, the others did step forward a little bit too early, didn't have the support of the rest of the team just yet, but they were able to follow up just brilliantly, able to get those extra kills, managed to steal away that camp yet again, and even though they lost out on the Dragon Knight, they're in a rather good position. They are getting control around the map, they've taken down that fort on the bottom side, even getting another camp for themselves, and they do have an experience advantage right now.
Well, Phoenix, I don't see that as being a sustainable option to get one pick on a Li Ming using your temporal loop into a 120-second or 2-minute cooldown on that mosh pit. It's effective for one kill, sure.
The Dahaka gets picked off, taking that camp on the top side. The Chromie doing a lot of work as she just goes straight in, and this is this very good tempered aggression coming out from the side of Capital, just going in when they realize that they have the man advantage. Sure, Beefy on this Chromie is very bold in stepping forward up against that Li Ming, but they do get the kill. They do manage to take that camp, and they're in a brilliant position right now.
Phoenix, Beefy is living up to the role that he's been thrust into, which is the only assassin on the team. Sure, we've got Sonya, which looks to be being built with that leap as a damage dealer as well. However, Chromie is landing those skill shots and putting out the damage when it needs to happen. It's very good to see that. It's interesting.
They're doing very well with it so far. We'll have to see if they can actually translate this into more advantages throughout the rest of the game, but we do have the rotation coming down to the bottom side of the map, and could very well just see a Dragon Knight very quickly going over to the side of Capital if there's not an interruption in time.
Malfurion with the Moonfire, stopping Aureus from picking that one up. And again, Moonfire spamathon from Venom. Dahaka picked up again.
Yeah, on the bottom side, just caught out of position, just wanting to be able to find an opportunity to flip over that altar, but the rest of Capital were very aware of any potential players. The leap does get used, didn't actually land, but it does give them position to take that Dragon Knight, and they are going to be able to use that temporal loop to clean up this Garo. So very nicely played there from the side of Capital, and they are just pushing advantages after advantages now.
And we have the Dragon Knight just pounding away on that mid fort now, getting a big old punch onto Lapper on that Tychus. That was a very good utilization of the temporal loop there from the Chromie to trap Loke on the Garrosh. We've got a 5-man push at mid, translating down to that bottom lane now, getting the rotation in and taking out this keep wall, opening up the map, creating themselves a win condition. Phoenix?
Exactly, just making, essentially making the shortest distance from A to B, just go straight through that bottom lane, and it's just the easiest way to get to that core. And they do have a rather considerable defense on the side of Ripple with the Tigers, especially when he pops the Odin, and also the Li Ming damage can do a decent amount of damage to that Dragon, as you see. Doesn't get too much more than just that fort in the middle lane. They do manage to take down one of the towers on the bottom side, but it's a very nice defense coming out of Ripple, especially considering the position that they're in. They're down 2 levels, they're down a talent tier, and it looks like despite that, they still want to keep on fighting.
Taking a fight now with Loke on the Garrosh being caught in the time trap. We've got a lot of damage coming out on the Li Ming. Cleansing Flame coming out from Alexstrasza. Backing out finally. Loke going down to the Arthas and the ETC. Getting a lot of slows. Chromie just missing that Li Ming with the Q. Connect on the Venom. We're going to miss with that one. Mav gets out. Temporal loop. Well played, Chromie. Li Ming gets blown up.
Yeah, this is a brilliant position. Yeah, and they're going to be able to use this advantage with 2 men down. If the Garrosh not up for another 10 seconds, they could very well take this keep. I'm not sure if they can actually push for the core. We'll have to wait and see, as they do have a very good position. They're up 2 levels. Again, they're still up a talent tier. And it looks like they want to just play a little bit more cautiously. It's still reasonably early in this game. Death times aren't that long, but they're just trying to get as much as they can in this base while they can.
Oh, Phoenix, we see Dahaka in that top lane transition. Mid lane, got experience to 16 while his team plays defense. And you mentioned before, the Odin and the Li Ming can put out a lot of damage, which is how they've effectively stalled that last Dragon Knight and how they've managed to push this wave back just now. Things are looking a little grim for Ripple. I think they can bring it back if they play smart and get a pick here and there. Chromie's spotting out that heavy Merc camp, so let's see how this plays out.
Yeah, and I think a lot of what happened in that previous fight, especially over that siege camp, was that the members of Ripple, they kind of just got separated and split apart from the rest of the team. And especially Lock on that Garrosh, he was trying to walk in onto the point. They were down in talent and levels. And he just walked into the point, and it was just not really what the team needed at the time. The Sonya was leaping onto the backside, and it just forced the team into so many different directions, and they just weren't able to keep up with it. As they do manage to make a play on the bottom side, though.
Oh, we see the mosh pit and the instant disruption there from Loke. Well played. Again, taking this fight. Now they're on even talent tiers. Loke going down on the Garrosh, getting bullied by the Arthas. Dahaka time trap. Li Ming's getting picked on by the Sonya. As we see Garrosh fall to the Arthas bullying. There's still a chase on for the Li Ming and the Malfurion. Sonya gets rooted. ETC, health coming back up. There's the Alexstrasza value for you. Tychus, Ancient Speared. Aureus backing out now as we see the disengage. So it was a 1 kill cleanup there. So not too much value gained, and almost every ultimate burned except for the Odin.
Yeah, it was a reasonable fight. It was very much in, I won't say very much in favor of Capital, but it felt as though were the levels a little bit more even, that Ripple could have come out of that fight much better. It seemed like it was just a matter of a few stats here and there that were just not really helping them out. So the Garrosh does go down. He did survive a reasonable amount of time and did a very good job of interrupting that mosh pit, which could have been very devastating for the team, but just being down those levels really isn't helping them in these fights, and it is just going to allow Capital to just capture both of these altars. Sure, Burnsy's trying his very best to play the whole ring around the rosy with these altars, but he's just going to get caught out. Eventually, he's going to go down, and the Dragon Knight has been picked up, and this could very well be the game with that one man down, which they really needed for this defense. It's going to be very hard to see how Ripple hold on here.
Phoenix, I think you're on point here. We've prevent this Dragon Knight. Although we do have the good siege, we should see Odin pop in a moment. We should see all the spells and bells and whistles coming out from Mav on the Li Ming.
They need to use everything that they can right now, and it's just not really enough. As we can see, the Dragon Knight just blasting it down, and there's just too much damage coming out of the side of Capital.
That is going to be game, ladies and gentlemen. Going over to Capital in a convincing win versus Ripple Esports.
Yeah, we were worried about the amount of damage coming out of that lineup, especially with the triple warrior plus the Chromie, but they were able to get it to work just fine. I mean, if we looking at the damage numbers, yeah, they do tend to favor the side with multiple assassins, but they were able to do just Capital were able to do exactly what they needed with that composition, able to get those picks, coordinating those kills, and translating that into those map-wide objectives. And it just didn't seem that Ripple were able to get the most out of that global presence.
Capital came, they had a plan, and that plan revolved around 3 tanks, high heals from the Alexstrasza, percentage life healing with that abundance, and the Chromie to do the damage. The temporal loop worked fantastically in that sense. I wonder, Phoenix, though, is that a one-trick strat? Is there a hard way to counter that? Would that work against Nomia? Would it work against plebs to pros? I don't know.
It's a bit of an interesting one. I feel as though it probably wouldn't have the same success against some of those Premier Division teams. It feels as though that they would be much more coordinated to deal with a lot of the play that was coming out of Capital. We could even see some of those engages were not really hitting square on the head, and there were opportunities for Ripple to come back in. It just felt as though communication kind of broke down at some point, and it was made a little bit easier for Capital to just to pick off members one by one as they were split off from the herd and make the most of that composition that they had.
Well, Phoenix, I think you're right. And what I'm thinking is Ripple's a team that's just come together. They've
Mhm.
got a ways to go before we start seeing them acting as a cohesive unit. So I'm hoping they go away and they plan some boot camps together, or at least go and hang out and do some scrims, get some experience under their belt. So I know they've got a lot of valuable players on. I know a lot of those guys play on the ANZ region a lot, and they're good. So I want to see them develop that. In terms of capital, those guys look like they've been playing together for quite some time. Their rotations were a lot cleaner. They were a lot snappier. They seemed to know what they were after and what they wanted to do. They had a plan. They executed on that really well. So I'm looking forward to seeing more from both of those teams in the Open Division, Phoenix.
Absolutely, and as you're saying, they've got a lot. There's some work to be done when it comes to team cohesion. But the good thing about this is that they have a whole bunch of games to play each week. They can look at their replays. They can look at them as a team and think, okay, what could we have done better here? What better way could we have played around certain compositions? Just looking at drafts, there's a lot of data that we can look at, and even just looking at the replays is really helpful to helping a team improve. So there's a lot of ways that these teams can improve, and just from playing in this open division week after week, there's a lot of games to play, and it's very easy to just get better as a team in your coordination just from playing a lot together.
Couldn't agree more. It's a long road to the end before we start seeing any kind of shaping up for that crucible. It is week 1, ladies and gentlemen. Wait until we get to week 6 and 7. Then we'll start seeing where the landscape starts to look like, what that landscape starts to look like in terms of these open division teams. Who knows? We may have some new entrants come. We may have some new people come and challenging the top teams. What I'm looking forward to is seeing these ANZ teams growing and becoming a threat to the international scene, which I know it's going to happen naturally. These guys are good. Let's take them to great.
Absolutely, and it's always fun to see the open division. It's a different, though. The Swiss format is, and the best of ones is always a bit of a, there's always that little bit of trepidation about, oh, best of ones is a little, you can potentially get cheesed by some weird things, and if you have an off draft, all of a sudden that whole game is down the drain. But there's a lot of games to go through for each of these teams, and there's a lot of opportunities to improve, to get those wins on the board, and to make your way up those standings to potentially get into a spot to challenge some of those lower teams in the Premier Division for one of those very coveted spots.
And look, that's exactly what we're hoping for. So here's to those ANZ teams that have played tonight. Thanks for kicking off the season, guys. Very good. Great games, Phoenix. Great games.
Yeah, we had some great games over the course of the night. Disco graciously doing those first 2 casts, and we had some really interesting ones. It was very fun to watch from the sidelines, but that is going to be it for us for tonight for the first week of the ANZ Open Division. Thank you, Winters, for coming on to the cast. Congratulations on your first cast. How does it feel to finally have it done?
One and done, mate. No, I'll be back next week, folks. Great feeling. Great being here to support the teams. Open to all kinds of feedback. Look, Disco and Phoenix, thank you so much for taking a break off your Premier Division stuff and helping us out on this Wednesday. Looking forward to seeing you guys again tomorrow night. So thanks for joining. Appreciate it. ANZ team and Twitch chat, thanks for keeping us entertained tonight. Been a great cheer squad. So thanks, everybody.
All right, so that is going to be it for us. Thank you, everyone watching. Thank you, Blank, who's been running everything behind the scenes. Thank you, everyone who has been involved in the night. It's been an absolute gem. And remember, tomorrow night is going to be day 2 of the Premier Division. So it's going to be, I believe, it's 7:30, same time as it was on the Tuesday over at the Blizzard ANZ channel. So I am GL Phoenix. That has been Winters. This is going to be it for the night. So thank you, and we'll see you next time.